Everywhere I go lately, people are like, Trey, when are you going to give us a walk and talk for basketball? The guy in front of me today at the basketball game, Trey, please give me a walk and talk after this one. I need it after this game. 77-64 loss at the hands of the South Carolina Gamecocks. The truth is, people, I don't know what I can say to you that's going to give you some therapy after this game that's going to make you feel better. You're probably just going to be more frustrated like we all are, like Eric Musselman is. I mean, you shoot 37.1% from the floor in this one. You have, 9 assists to 20 for them. You're out-rebounded by a dozen. I mean, just about like every single metric. I mean, you're not going to win games like that, but the main thing that I see, and I'm not a basketball savant or anything like that, I tend to lean more towards football. That's why we do these after football games. But what I don't see out there is the right energy, toughness. I've watched a lot of Razorback basketball games in my time, and there's just a certain energy level that's not on display out there. We got a little bit of fool's gold after the Texas A&M game. Thought that they may have turned things around, figured things out. We saw the same starting five out there for this one, and it's just inexplicable. How can a guy like Trevin Brazile score 3 points? What, he got 3.7 rebounds? I mean, how does a guy with that much talent only do that? Like Caleb Battle, I just don't understand that. The guy's such a good three-point shooter, and you never know what you get out of Devo sometimes. Tremont Mark's been the only guy that's just been consistent out there, and he got off to a slow start. They really defended him well early. But maybe this team just has to have, a 2-hour and 38-minute game where there's just 73 free throws shot. I don't know, but what I do know is the energy level isn't there, and this team just isn't coming together, and I don't know that they will. Now, there's a tweet out there floating around last year where I said, hey, this isn't an NCAA tournament team, and they end up beating Kansas and going to the Sweet 16, but this just feels different. I think we all can see that. They're just not, it's just not coming together. And I'll say this too, because I see some talk about, Eric Musselman and this and that. I've covered a lot of Razorback basketball. Well, not a whole lot. I've obviously followed Nolan Richardson my whole childhood and through college and past that. And then when I started doing this job, covered Stan Heath, John Pelfrey, Mike Anderson, of course, and now Eric Musselman. And what I'll say about Musselman is the guy completely gets it. Like his attention to detail, his level of insanity kind of in a way, because you got to be a little bit crazy to be a great basketball coach. The getting up at 5:30 on the treadmill, going through the game notes, breaking down film the way he does, the attention to detail, just the level of OCD and all that stuff. Arkansas has a fantastic basketball coach in Eric Musselman. They haven't put it together this year. It happens, and it's unfortunate, but for me, he's earned a lot of grace. I mean, Musselman, to me, is a guy that gets it when you talk about his social media, his intensity, everything, just everything. He checks all the boxes for me personally. And you may have a different opinion, and you're certainly entitled to your opinion. We're all frustrated right now. I totally get it. But this basketball team, I just don't see how they're going to put it together this year. They're 1-4 in conference play already. That South Carolina team is all right. They're 15-3 now, but you look at their each category. They're not a great offensive team. They're pretty middle of the pack on defense. They don't get to the free throw line a whole lot. Don't rebound great, and they come in here to Bud Walton Arena and lead for all but like 41 seconds of the game when it was tied at the beginning. I mean, so that team should not be coming in against a decent Arkansas team and winning by double digits, and that's just what happened today. So. It's a balmy, 20 degrees out here right now. It feels nice compared to what we've seen here lately. Creek is frozen over. Not on that side, but on that side. So, I mean, what else is there to say? Arkansas hits the road. They play Ole Miss on, Wednesday. It's just been so inconsistent. I mean, Musselman still sticks basically to 7 or 8 players, and it's been different players. Layden Blocker played 17 minutes in this one, came off the bench early. And I thought he, answered the question right in the post game, just about maybe the frustration of playing different players. Because it's 7 or 8, but it's been different a lot. And there's been other guys getting in 5-6 minutes here and there. But what do you want me to do? Not try out other things, not try out other guys. It's just not coming together. It's just not meshing, and it's frustrating for all of us. Again, I know nobody wants to hear it, but the guy's earned a lot of grace with me. I don't know what people complaining have been watching for the last 20, 25 years, But Musselman's the best Arkansas coach since Nolan Richardson. I don't even think that's up for debate, and I think the program is lucky to have the guy. So what do we talk about now? You guys want to touch on some football? A little January football talk. I mean, the transfer portal stuff is pretty much wrapping up now. I've got Arkansas at about 83 scholarship players. There's been some recent news with, red shirts and, super seniors who aren't coming back. Medical red shirts, I should say. Medical hardships is actually the correct term. So medical hardship means the guy, basically their football career is going to be over at Arkansas due to injuries. They can't play. They can still do stuff with the team and stuff, but they can't play. They still get to stay on scholarship, but they don't count against the 85 total. Now, I'd put out there that I have a really good source that says McAdoo is headed that way for a medical hardship. McAdoo tweeted something after that, hey, don't count me out, basically. Doctors haven't counted me out. My source does say that's the direction that they're probably headed there. Eli Henderson to go on medical hardship. Cole Carson is going to graduate early. We know Terry Wells also is already going on medical hardship. Cole Carson is graduating early. I don't think any of those guys, I think combined those offensive linemen played one snap. I think Terry Wells played Georgia State his freshman year in 2021. Carson and Henderson, I don't believe ever played a snap at Arkansas after 3 and 2 years on campus. So Brady Latham not going to return with the team. The tight end, I forget his, Francis Sherman's not going to return with the team. Obviously, we know like Bo Limmer's going to play in the East-West Shrine Bowl, and Dwight McLaughlin's going to play East-West Shrine Bowl, but Keevy Rose is coming back also. So, what I've kind of done lately, it's pointless for me to just kind of go down the roster of 85 guys and all the potential super seniors. I will say this, I've got them at 12 super seniors coming back, which is pretty astonishing because there's like 9 that are leaving. I mean, there's the potential for that many super seniors. You got guys that are, either not returning to the program or have entered the transfer portal, like KJ Jefferson. He would have been a super senior, for example. So I think it's pretty wild that they could have a record number of super seniors. The previous high was 2021 when they had 11 super seniors. So definitely a high number. There's still room, obviously, in the transfer portal for them to bring in some more guys there, but a pretty good number. Now, where do they need to continue to evaluate players in the transfer portal? They've got to bring in a veteran linebacker. The numbers are good at linebacker. They've got 8 of them. So that's a good number of linebackers, but you're very inexperienced with that group. I mean, you can't just sit there and go, Brad Spence, Xavier Sori, those guys. And Sori, had 19 tackles last year for Georgia, but those guys really need to, they've got to go find somebody that has more experience, a little more veteran. And that would be one of the groups that I would look at right now just on paper and compare it to last year's group and say, I don't know that if you lay these two groups side by side that I would feel as comfortable with this group as I did last year's group, where you had Pooh Paul, who'd played a lot of snaps for him previously, and Jaheim Thomas, who was very productive at Cincinnati before that, and Antonio Greer, who was very productive at USF in his career there. And it's not to say like Spence and Alex Sanford and those guys aren't going to be good players, because I think they can be, but also I think we go back last year and say, I think Andrew Chamblee is going to be ready, or Patrick Kudus is going to be ready, and those guys weren't quite ready for what was coming at them last year, just a little bit too young. So it's better in the transfer portal age to feel really good that you have some good options, and if your young guys come along and are better, then great. But kind of the way things happened with Jalen Braxton last year, he came along and overtook some of the older guys that they brought in from the portal and stuff. So in this day and age of the portal, you can build the perfect roster. You can have a 3 deep plus 1, which is the model that I always talk about, where you have, a 3 deep and then an extra guy. For the offensive line, you would have 15 players would make your 3 deep, and then you have an interior offensive lineman and a tackle, an extra tackle. So you have 17 offensive linemen. You can just go out and do that. There's no reason you should ever say, well, our 5th defensive tackle, we just don't know if he's ready. That's another position that they've got to shore up. Now, I think they've got 4 really good ones. I think Ian Gerard is really going to take a big step forward. They got Cam Ball back, Keevy Rose, as I mentioned, Eric Gregory back. So they have those guys. They don't have anybody coming in out of the high school ranks or the portal right now, but we've seen them each of the last few years add another defensive tackle out of the portal in the late period. So I think you could probably expect to see that. They need at least 1 more defensive tackle, 1 more linebacker, as we talked about, and I think the numbers are pretty fine at defensive back to where they should be at least as good as they were last year. You know, most people are a year older. They lose Walcott, lose Dwight McGlothern. Did I say McGlothern earlier? Did I say Bishop? Because Bishop was on my mind because he's transferring. Regardless, you know, lost Dwight McGlothern, but Jalen Braxton's a year older now. You know, they added a couple of safeties from the transfer portal. I think Denico Slaughter from Tennessee will probably be a good guy for him. Miguel Mitchell probably provide some depth for him. But, you know, Jaden Johnson's back. Hudson Clark, I don't know if I mentioned that he's back also. He hasn't really put anything out on social media about him returning, and most of those updates that I was saying was, you know, just guys that haven't announced what they're doing. So, and then offensive line, they're down. I've got them down to 14 scholarship offensive linemen now after the 3 guys that I mentioned are leaving or graduating early or taking a medical hardship. So 14 offensive linemen, at minimum you need 15, and 17 would be the ideal number. So go look for them to add another offensive lineman or 2. Again, I've got them at 83, so the numbers got to work out there. The good news is they got a little wiggle room because you got spring football coming up, and you have, what, I think maybe 4 guys that aren't enrolling that are supposed to be coming in that aren't enrolling yet. So you can, as long as you don't have over 85, you should be pretty good. So we ended up doing half this walk and talk on football, because basketball is just, it's frustrating right now. There's nothing I can say that's going to make you feel way better about the basketball team. And maybe it helps just to kind of get it off your chest and talk about it and the frustrations you have. Why isn't Trevon Brazile, why isn't he playing like a guy that's being projected? I mean, I saw him the other day as the 10th overall pick projected in the NBA draft. Why isn't he playing like that? You know, Caleb Battle looked like a guy that was just going to rain threes this year, and Devo has been so sporadic, and you know that happens with Devo. You know, he gets kind of streaky and, you know, figures out where his role is. And yeah, and L. Ellis went for that. You know, L. Ellis played 30-something minutes against Duke and then didn't play more than 10 minutes, and that was back in late November, and didn't play more than 10 minutes in a game since until the Texas A&M game, and played well. Mark's been pretty consistent for him, obviously. There's just been, it's frustrating, and I'm freezing to death. I'm cold. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. Nothing that I'm saying here on this walk and talk was very therapeutic, but I mean, again, I get asked to do a walk and talk everywhere I go almost for basketball. So here it is. Here's your post-game basketball walk and talk. We talked a lot about football. You don't feel any better. I don't feel any better. I will say, on the football roster, when I lay the depth charts down side by side and I consider, you know, guys are older now, you know, I think I like this one a little bit better. Now, quarterback's going to be a big one. You know, if you took this quarterback group and you laid it down to the week 1 depth chart against Western Carolina for last year, you'd probably say, it's not as good, because KJ Jefferson was a first-team preseason All-ACC quarterback. But if you take KJ Jefferson, how he performed last year, and consider also what we know now, that Dan Enos is not the offensive coordinator and Bobby Petrino is. And, I mean, that alone right there, I mean, I could just end it right. Bobby Petrino is the offensive quarterback, should be better than it was last year. Now, if you're talking about 2022 KJ Jefferson, 2021 KJ Jefferson, maybe we have an argument there. But that would be the one position. I think at running back, they're probably in good shape there. I think wide receiver, they basically got everybody back except for Sam Bakke, who was hurt last year. But they basically got everybody back at wide receiver. Tight end should absolutely be better than it was last year, with everybody being a year older, plus adding Paskey to the mix, or finally kind of a good blocking tight end. And then offensive line, if offensive line isn't better, I mean, that the group last year played a part in them. My face is starting to freeze, giving up 47 sacks. So, if offensive line isn't better, then none of this really matters. So, but I think they will be. So, but again, we can talk about this. And last year I said the football roster was going to be, probably the best football roster that they've had. And I think it was. But the problem is everybody else also has access to the transfer portal and has boosted their roster. I mean, look at what Ole Miss has done in the transfer portal. So, Arkansas's roster may be improved this coming year from what it was in 2023. But what about Ole Miss? Is their roster better? What about Mississippi State? And so those are the things you have to consider. It's not just anymore like you can look back at last year's team and say, these guys were this and they got this coming back and they lost that guy. It's more impossible to predict than ever before. SEC games are always so close, so it's a difficult task this day and age, and we just got to adjust to it. Hopefully we'll get some. I don't know what the answer is with NIL and all that stuff, but I'm going off on another tangent, and I've gone 15 minutes here. So I want to thank everybody for watching the Walk and Talk. I hope this satisfies all the people that has asked me for one for after basketball, and yeah, that's it. 77-64 South Carolina over Arkansas. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and with your basketball Walk and Talk. We'll catch you next time.